Greetings duplicant and welcome to the breach. As you can tell from the heat overlay, it's got a little hot around here, so time to sort that out. For that I'm going to use the opposite of underfloor heating, underfloor cooling. Originally when I set up this steam room, the Aqua tuner in here was going to be for cooling a sleet wheat farm. If you saw the last episode, you saw that I tagged the sleet wheat farm onto the copper volcano tamer. You can see for the first project of the day, I've already laid out the Aqua tuner and the steam generator and all the pipe work. For cooling a base, you have two options. You can either cool the air as it comes in, which is great if you manage to do this right from the start. You have a cool liquid vent. But if you've let your base heat up too much, adding cool air will have a negligible effect. So what we're doing here is going to bring down the temperature of all the tiles in the base to eventually equal out the temperature quite quickly. When designing environmentally friendly homes, architects often use the idea of thermal mass to reduce the bills of the residents. For example, a house made out of wood will have a very low thermal mass. You can heat it up quickly, but it will cool down quickly. But if the architect built internal walls out of bricks, it would reduce the peaks and the troughs of the heat by evening out the temperature in the home. It's about time that thermoregulator got some cooling. So the duplicates have finished off the loop and we're adding our first water to the pipe. This water is coming in from the bottom of the map and it's entering the base at about 38 degrees, nearly 40 degrees Celsius. But we'll soon get this cooled down. We're going to set the temperature to 20 degrees Celsius because that's within range of some of the very important plants we have inside the base. For example, if the reed fibre in the toilet stops working, you would get duplicates having little accidents all across the map, and not of the happy little variety either. I had intentionally bridged on the water to not overfill the liquid reservoir. I find this method very useful because it means that if you do get sidetracked by something else, you don't come back to a mess. And there we cut the water off at the source and we just have a small amount of liquid in the reserve tank. If you're actively cooling a steam generator and you want to make it as efficient as possible, enclose the steam generator in its own room. This way you're just cooling down the steam generator, not the surrounding environment. So a quick look at the thermal map shows that the oxygen at the top of the base is around 40 degrees Celsius and the tiles are just below that temperature. The water is being pumped into the bottom of the base at 20 degrees Celsius and flowing through the initial bedrooms of the duplicates and is being quickly warmed up. So it's all set up and working and we can just come back in a few cycles and have another look what's happening. Another cooling project being finished off, and this time for the steam generators above the industrial brick. This setup is also going to preheat any carbon dioxide pumped through it to 70 degrees Celsius. We did some slight modifications to the hot carbon dioxide vent. The small collection area I had originally built was too small and the steel pump was overheating, so I enlarged the volume. This tank surrounded by chlorine was used to kill all the zombie spores in the carbon dioxide. Over the last few hundred cycles I've been brute forcing a lot of heating and cooling and I've used a lot of power. I'd burnt through my reserves of natural gas and even when the vent was erupting it wasn't supplying enough gas to feed the power that I was consuming. I'd also burnt through my hydrogen reserves and was relying on the coal generators to top up the system. So I really had no choice but to tie in some of my hydrogen vents. Nice simple setup, steam generator to cool the hydrogen down from 500 degrees Celsius to 125. and a steel gas pump linked up to some automation with an atmospheric sensor and a heat sensor. Cascade failures caused by a lack of power is probably the most common cause of base failures. So even before I started building the hydrogen collector, I built 3 petroleum generators. I built a 3rd incubator to get more slicksters in the ranches, and I upgraded the condos to ceramic because they all started overheating once the temperature rose to 70 degrees Celsius. As I'm quite literally burning through my reserves of petroleum, I'd better make a little space to refine some more. Luckily, seeing as I have a lot of oil lying around, it was easy to make an airlock. So when I'm refining the crude oil into petroleum, the natural gas is in one place, and it will make it easy to feed it into my natural gas generators. We'll build 2 steel reservoirs and transfer all the petroleum that is lurking down towards the bottom of the map up here where it's going to be easier to control. There's the last bit of petroleum being drained out of those 2 tanks. The hydrogen vent has started erupting, which is really good news for the base and our power supply issues. Although it might take a few eruption cycles for it to start actually supplying any hydrogen to the generators. But we have plenty of mass in the water, the steel metal tiles and the shift plates to keep the temperature quite low in here for quite some time. You can see the hydrogen at the temperature shift plates is still only 33 degrees Celsius, while at the vent it's erupting at 500 degrees. One eruption period complete, a few more of these, and then we'll have some more power for the base. Here's a snapshot of the base from the beginning of the episode. The duplicate built tiles and the natural tiles we have left have all got around to 37 degrees Celsius because of the oxygen we've been pumping into the base. I did forget to check earlier, but we're 100 cycles later and you can see that the base has cooled down to a nice 20 degrees Celsius. I'm going to up the thermal regulator to 25 degrees Celsius so I don't stifle my plants. The only area in the base that hasn't cooled down significantly is the aquarium and the water storage area, but I'm not worried about that. As you can see, the underfloor cooling works a treat. Well, it's time to get that oil refinery built. We're going to utilise the oil that the slicksters are producing before we start pumping things from the bottom of the base. I'm not going to set up any automation on the oil refinery, I just wanted to get it going and producing petroleum so my generators can start using it. During the editing process I noticed that I'm building this transformer out of copper. I'll have to sort that out later. It's so good. After 845 cycles, seeing the duplicants get a small little project like this built in a matter of seconds. The oil refinery will keep working until the gas pressure reaches 5 kilograms per tile, so I have a bit of time before I have to sort that out. And now we're supplying the petroleum generators with the petroleum they need and have become the primary sources of power for our base. This episode seems to be spending a lot of time doing little projects, but as I've mentioned, watching me dig out areas is a little bit boring, but as you can see, I've dug out an area and filled in the same area as well, all ready for a future project. Well, it appears to be a lot of very small projects this episode, and a little bit shorter one because of that. But thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the other side.